now.
Hello, Chattanooga. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Sports Talk with Sam Jordan, Keon Rose, filling in for Sam Jordan as he handles a number of administrative duties. So I'll be taking the helm today. It's Thursday, which means that it is an Eagles Thursday. And joining me in the studio, as we do every week during the season, Chattanooga Eagles head coach Hayden Clark. Joining me. How you doing this week, Coach?
I'm all right, man. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And we were able to call the game last week, and you guys were playing the Huntsville Rockets. That game was kind of a tough loss because I think the game was, we all knew it was going to be a tough one coming in, and it wound up being really close throughout the entire game, even though you guys didn't play your best football. What do you think about a game like that? Like, what do you do after a game where you feel like you could have won and maybe even should have won, but you made some knuckleheaded mistakes?
At the end of the day, man, you just got to move on. You got to pick everything up. You got to take the positives, and you just got to move on. It's week one. Obviously, it's very important to come out of there 1-0. We didn't do that. So how do we respond next week? You always got to talk about the next play. Always got to talk about the next week. So I look to bounce back this week, and hopefully we can just fix some of those small mistakes, because it wasn't anything glaring. There was a bunch of stuff that probably even the normal fan eye would not see. It's just a couple little knick-knack stuff, man, that we just didn't do what we needed to do to win. So I mean that's what we have to take care of this week, and hopefully we can get back to Chattanooga 1-1.
How do you reduce penalties? Because that is something I think that even a normal fan like myself, I look at the game and there were just a couple of penalties that I thought moved you guys out of positions to really make big-time plays. How do you reduce those?
It's just the boneheaded ones are the ones that gets me.
Right.
It's holding call, I get it. I can take the hold every now and then. That lets you know at least your offense is working. So that's not terrible. It's the little stuff, the personal foul stuff, the chip block that we had that took us out of field goal range and put us down the sticks. It's the little stuff. It's one of those things where the guys have to be, they have to be better. At the end of the day, like, I can't sit over there and tell, I can't coach not to get a penalty. You know how to play the game or you're not here.
Right.
So, I mean, they just have to be better. They got to be smarter. But at the same time, I get it. It's week one. We don't get the practice time that most teams do. So I'm not too concerned with it yet. If it thing continues to be a habit, then I'm going to be irate about it. But in that week one, the preseason game, we had, Lord have mercy, it felt like every play we
right
we
every other play.
So it got better in the transition into week one. It did get better. So I just look for that number to calm down. I think we'll be all right on that aspect of things.
Okay. Next week, this upcoming Saturday, rather, you play the Middle Tennessee Bulldogs. They're new in the league. Have you gotten the chance to see them, and what do you think about them?
Well, I've seen multiple films on them. They're very big, very fast. They're physical. I think they have a lot of tools that are needed in the league to be successful. So I look for this game just, if not more difficult, just as difficult as last week. So it's going to be a dogfight. You're on the road. So that always makes it more difficult to get players there. It's just more difficult to be on the road. But I mean, it's going to be a dogfight. They're good. They're well coached. They're going to bring it.
Last week, you had a little bit of trouble running the football, and I think it threw off a lot of things, including the passing game. You guys use a lot of play action a lot as well, and the running game without having that was really hard to open that up. If you how do you work on that? What do you change about that? Do you use screen passes more? Try and augment the running game that way?
I mean, it's the thing that we've been preaching since day one. We have to be able to run the football. There's a couple guys that on the sideline maybe get mad at that because they feel like they don't get the touches. But at the same time, every time we run the ball at times, it's like we're picking up 2 yards max. And, in our offense, we need that at least 3, especially on, first down, second down, because then we get behind the sticks. So, it's got to be somebody has to make the play to always have the mindset to at least get 3 yards. If we can get 3, I feel comfortable. But I felt like there were some holes there, especially after watching the film. Our offense did a pretty dang good job. They had a couple busts, but obviously that's going to happen. But our running backs, I think Some of it is to do with us as well. I think we're kind of subbing in and out a little bit too much. So we're going to try and narrow that down a little bit this week and maybe get some guys some series to solidify the carries. But they just have to be better. At the end of the day, they have to be better. I have to do a better job of, getting plays in their hands. So we'll see what happens this week. Hopefully we can pick off and go from there.
You're listening to Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM, Sports Talk with Sam Jordan. Keon Rose filling in for Sam Jordan. And Chattanooga Eagles head coach Hayden Clark joining us on the show on an Eagles Thursday. So one of the things that I'm interested in is how well you guys did pass the ball. Like you had struggles, obviously, at points in the game, but the big plays were there, and you did score a couple of touchdowns passing the ball. Is that something that you are going to have to rely on to be the backbone of the season?
Yeah, I mean, we have some big time receivers that can go get the football. They're big, they're fast, they're strong. The quarterback's very serviceable. I mean, obviously you saw it this week. There's a couple things on his end that he has to shore up. His footwork kind of gets away from him a little bit, and the kid can sling it. Like, he's got an arm, so
he does.
There's no lack of confidence in me calling a play for him. It's just, I think, at times he has to let the ball go. There's a couple things he always tries to hit the big play. Instead of playing within the offense, getting that 7 or 8, it's always trying to hit the big one. So he has to do a better job of playing inside of him, playing inside the offense, and he can't be nervous out there. I think there are times where he struggles and gets nervous and thinks, "Oh crap, I got to get out of here," and then scrambles at times where he doesn't have to. So we've talked with him. I'm going to talk to him more on the way up there, and hopefully we can get that stuff straightened out as well.
And we were saying that in the broadcast at one point where he took off a little bit early, and I think that the very next play he threw a touchdown pass that was pinpoint accurate. I mean, it was the only place the defender couldn't reach it, and we were saying like he should really trust his arm more. Yeah. He's got the arm talent; it's definitely there. Is that how do you get him into rhythm for that?
It's just like what we always talk about. We got to get him in the short stuff quick. We got to give him those first couple completions out of the way. And I do think it's very important for him to complete, one of those first 2 or 3 deep balls. He kind of had a couple incomplete that could have gone either way. Either the receiver just didn't come down with it, or he just overthrew it or underthrew it. So I think it's very important for him and his confidence just to get his morale up. It is what it is. He's going to go out there. He's going to throw the football up 20 plus times a game for us because that's who we are as an offense. So he's very, very capable to throw it even more. He's very capable. He just has to play within the offense. He has to settle down, get things going. The O-line did a heck of a job the other night.
Absolutely.
They had a couple times where they, again, broke down, but that happens. That kind of stuff happens. Sometimes the defense brings more people than you got to block. So I look for him this week to settle down a little bit, and I think he's going to improve every week.
And I think you said last week, one of the players to look out for the game was left tackle Clarence Wiley, and he was a beast in that game.
He's an animal. He had like 2 or 3 pancakes in one play. So
yeah,
he's an animal.
So one of the things that I noticed about you guys' defense was, you gave up some touchdowns, but honestly, a lot of that was just penalties, and you talked about cleaning that up. But have you liked what you've seen from your defense? Because there's a lot of bend but don't break there.
Yeah, I like the defense. I'm sorry. I love the defense. I really do. They have a lot of playmakers over there. I think the one thing that we have to be careful of and be cautious as is that big one. At this level, you're just not going to see a lot of those 10 to 12 play drives. So if we can make them drive it instead of giving up that 20 or 30-yard gain, we're going to be very successful on defensive side, because I think if you can, if we go back and watch the film, all 3 of their touchdowns came from somewhere, either a big play, that big breakaway. The first touchdown was a 30-yard pass. I think we just have to, dim down that big play. If we can take that away, it's going to be dangerous.
We're on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, and NoogaRadio.com. Sports Talk with Sam Jordan. Keon Rose filling in for Sam Jordan. And Hayden Clark, the head coach of the Chattanooga Eagles, is joining us here in studio on an Eagles Thursday. What do you see in Middle Tennessee that worries you a little bit, that you have tried to, that you're a little bit concerned about?
On the defensive side, they have they're very big. Their defensive line stands up, kind of proud defense, and walks around and then goes when the ball snapped. I saw a couple things on film. or they like to even, you know, at certain times, they'll jump the snap where it don't matter if the ball is moving or not. If they're going, whenever they think that ball is going to be snapped, they're going to jump and they're going to make you pay for it, which, yeah, you know, some people might consider it dirty, but at the same time, if you're going to get a penalty, you might as well take advantage of it. So, I mean, they'll hit you in the mouth. They'll hit you in the mouth. And then, you know, how do we respond to that? What is our center going to do whenever that 300-pound guy walks up in front of him and he's bulldozing him, even if he doesn't move the football? So, you know, that's one thing we're going to have to be very cautious for. On the offensive side, they get into a lot of formations, but it's a lot of the same stuff we do. It's a lot of play action stuff, screen here, you know, and then hit the big one. So the secondary guys are going to have to be very disciplined. You know, they can't want to jump on that quick stuff because they'll throw the big one right off of it. So they're going to have to dim down what they do over there. And I think we're going to have a pretty good game plan for them.
Looking forward to it. You're listening to Nooga Radio 92.7 FM Sports Talk with Sam Jordan, Chattanooga Eagles head coach Hayden Clark joining us in studio. And Coach has a lot of opinions on what happens in the NFL. And we have an Atlanta story. Matt Ryan has agreed to a 5-year extension with the Atlanta Falcons, which makes him the first $30 million a year QB with $100 million guaranteed in total. Coach, you don't like this contract.
Why not? Not at all. Yeah, I think Matt Ryan is very good. You know, there's a couple classifications that I talk in the quarterback stuff. Like, you know, great, really good, and then just not very good. So right. I think Matt Ryan is in the top 15 conversation. I don't think he'll ever be in that top 5 conversation. I just think there's a lot of guys out there that would love to have that Julio Jones, you know, that Sanu, and then the Taylor Gabriel, I think that was his name, the receiver. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that he has a throw to, and I'm not taking anything away. And now they're adding
Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Matt Ryan because he does do well, but he has a lot of weapons on that offense. And not to mention, he's coming up on, what, 33 now? 32, 33
I think
years
so,
old?
yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's one of those things where if you put him in a different offense, I don't think you're talking about a 5-year extension.
Probably not, because my thing with paying a quarterback that amount of money is the reason why I think that Russell Wilson is worth it, and the reason why I think that Aaron Rodgers is worth it, is when our team has problems and when our team has holes, I pay you that amount of money to make it seem like we still don't have problems. Like Russell Wilson's offensive line is terrible. I was talking to Nick earlier about this, and he, to the untrained eye, to someone who doesn't really know football, you honestly don't notice how bad Seattle's offensive line is because of how good he is and how he takes away everything. Like, I don't know that Matt Ryan is that guy. I don't think so.
He's not. You put him in Seattle, oh gosh, it's going to be bad. Right. Because not only can Russell Wilson, good Lord, Russell Wilson, you know, he can move, so he can escape that stuff.
Yeah.
If you put Matt Ryan back there, it's going to be bad. Not to mention he doesn't have anybody to throw to at all.
No. And not only did he not have that many great, he had good receivers last year, but nobody top tier. And those guys left.
Yeah.
You know, Paul Richardson's in Washington. I mean, like that whole team got stripped.
Yeah.
You know, not just on the defensive end. So, I mean, I don't even know what Seattle's going to do. But yeah, Matt Ryan's being paid like a guy who can be a Band-Aid quarterback, and he's not really a Band-Aid quarterback.
He's literally being paid like a Tom Brady, you know, and Aaron Rodgers. And I think a lot of people don't understand what Aaron Rodgers is doing as well. Because, I mean, don't tell me wrong, Jordy Nelson is elite in this league, but who else does he have? You know, he had Randall Cobb, who's subpar at best, but Aaron Rodgers literally makes the Packers offense.
Yeah.
There is somebody else that could step in the Falcons and do just as well, if not better, than Matt Ryan. And I just think that's a bad move. I really do. You're basically saying that that's your leader for the rest of his career.
Right. And the thing that I think is really interesting about it is Atlanta's in the same boat that a lot of these teams are in, where you have a guy, and I was wondering, like, what is the minimum amount of talent for a guy to be considered an elite quarterback? Because everyone is afraid of not having one.
Yeah,
and so how low down the ladder do you go before you just decide I'm not even going to pay this guy? Because it doesn't seem to be a bottom. Like, guys are getting paid that I don't think, and I, like, for instance, I love Derek Carr, but we don't even know if he's good yet.
Yeah, I mean, he had that one bright year. He had the one bright year, and then last year it was about as bad as it gets for him. So I mean, there's not a lot of, in my eyes, there's not a lot of elite quarterbacks in the league right now. And I definitely don't think that Matt Ryan is that guy that deserves that $30 million contract.
Right. That is a top 5 quarterback contract that he's getting paid with, along with Kirk Cousins, which is another guy that I like him. I think the Redskins can kind of get away with not paying a guy like Kirk Cousins because they don't actually like their fan base, and we just all show up anyway. But for teams where the fan base actually has to like you, it's hard to sell your fans on, we're going to let this guy walk, and we're not sure who our next guy absolutely is.
That's another thing. I don't think they should have let Matt Ryan walk. I don't. I think that, especially at the situation they're not now, I don't think they drafted a quarterback. So I definitely think you sign him to an extension. I definitely think that he's worth having around, but I don't think he is your staple.
Right. 5 years, 100 mil, certainly too high.
He's not your staple. So, that's my opinion. Take that with whatever you want.
So the NFL loses another legend. We had Jason Witten retiring, going to ESPN to join the Monday Night Football crew. So I'm interested in how that's going to go. But what have you liked from watching Jason Witten's career?
I think Jason Witten is the best tight end to ever play the game. He is unbelievable.
I want to argue with you on that, but I actually don't know if I can.
I don't know, other than Tony Gonzalez, we got him being a stud, doing what he does. You got Gronk, who, if he could stay healthy,
would easily be.
He would probably easily be the best tight end, but game in and game out, Jason Witten blocks, which is something that you don't even hear about anymore as a tight end. He blocks, he makes every catch. Like, there's not that one catch he doesn't make. He goes and gets the football. He does all the things that a tight end is supposed to do. Now it's just everybody hears about him being Gronk, getting that 1,000-yard game, or 1,000-yard season. He just didn't hear. Jason Witten made the tight end spot relevant.
He did, and especially when it came to it from a pass catching perspective. I mean, you got to be able to block to stay on the field as a tight end in this league, though we're starting to see more teams have 2 tight ends, one guy who catches and the other guy who blocks. But you've got to be able to block to stay on the field, I think. And if you can do both, I think you make life really easy for your team. And Jason Witten was a guy, to me, that was really fearless too. My favorite Jason Witten moment was he went over the middle of the field. I forget who the Cowboys were playing.
I think it was the Eagles.
Might have been the Eagles.
I think it was the Eagles.
And he got his helmet knocked off. And he just stood up and ran 60 yards.
And almost scored.
And almost scored, with no helmet. Like stuff like that, you just look at it and go, this guy's like the Paul Bunyan of NFL tight ends.
You're not seeing another tight end in the
Chattanooga
league.
Morning News with Russ and Val. Weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Man who was banned from the Hamilton Place Mall is wanted again. 18-year-old David Ballard was reportedly caught trespassing at the Emma Wheeler homes last Wednesday. When police went to talk to him, they say he bolted away, and they found a gun and ammunition under his passenger seat. Mr. Ballard reportedly posted on Facebook saying that he owns the guns and cut off his ankle bracelet. He now faces multiple charges, including criminal trespassing. Commissioner Tim Boyd, who was reelected in District 8, winning against Brett Lambert, says he's confident the extortion charges against him will go away. Brent Lambert, the mayor of East Ridge, and his political opponent pressed charges against Boyd for extortion, claiming that Boyd had dirt on him that would go away if Brent Lambert dropped out of the race. Joseph Lewis from Chattanooga faces murder charges in Knoxville. He's accused of killing Terrence Campbell in Knoxville. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
92.7 Nooga Radio. Chattanooga weather.
Mostly clear skies will continue through your nighttime. Quite mild overnight, lows of around 60. For Friday, another dry and warm day with some sunshine. A few late clouds, highs near 85. More clouds Saturday with scattered showers and thunder showers most likely for the second half of the day. Spring has sprung, so let Glass Farm Nursery beautify your lawn and garden with a big assortment of tropicals, perennials, and annuals. Open daily, closed Sundays. That's Glass Farm, Highway 11, 4 miles south of Trenton. And I'm Sword Team 12, Chief Meteorologist Pat Report.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Nooga Radio. More into Talladega.
Hello? Who am I speaking with? Eric, you're our winner.
Really?
You'll receive tickets for all 3 races between the Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Monster Energy Cup races.
Holy cow.
In addition, you'll receive a 2-night stay at the Microtel Hotel and restaurant accommodations at 2 area restaurants.
Nooga Radio. Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Nuga Radio. 92.7.
Your NASCAR racing station. Nuga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nuga Radio. 92.7.
It's the moment you've been waiting for. Sam Jordan's Nuga Radio 92.7 Sports now.
You're listening to all new Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. Sport Talk with Sam Jordan. Keon Rose filling in for Sam Jordan. And boy, we were talking about Jason Witten. We kind of got cut off there at the end, but Jason Witten is a Tennessee Volunteer legend. Jason Witten is a Dallas Cowboy legend. And I say this as a Redskins fan because I think sports fans understand something that most people tend not to understand, which is even though you hate the other guy's uniform, you can still respect the guy. And I can respect the hell out of Jason Witten and the career that he's had. He's been absolutely nothing but amazing to watch in the league. And yeah, Jason Witten has had some Washington Redskin killer moments that I will never forget in my life that have truly, truly hurt my feelings. But I have a lot of respect for Jason Witten. My youngest brother, Cade, is on the show with me right now. Cade is a big NFL fan, a big NFL guy. Before we get into this, Cade, though, just want to give Coach Hayden Clark special thanks for joining us on the show. Really want to do that more formally, but he comes in every week. A lot of coaches will give you non-answers. You will ask them questions, and they will give you answers to things that you did not ask in an attempt to avoid answering real questions. Coach Clark is not like that. He gives you real answers to questions that you ask, and that makes my job really easy to do. So I definitely appreciate that, Coach, and I appreciate you coming on the air. So, Kate, me and Coach were talking about this before. Matt Ryan agrees to the 5-year extension with the Atlanta Falcons. $30 million a year, $100 million guaranteed. Everyone is skeptical of this deal, and I think rightfully so. I don't know if the Falcons necessarily had a choice. And I feel like sometimes when you're a team and you're trying to have a quarterback who's good, even, like the market is so high on just good quarterbacks, as Coach Clark calls them, that you end up overpaying a guy like Matt Ryan. Do the Falcons even have a choice?
No, not at all. Like, I think in the one sense, you sort of think of it as, does he deserve to be paid like a Brady? But we're at a point where if a quarterback is good enough, like, they win the right when it's time for them to be paid as a franchise quarterback to basically get to have the most expensive contract, whether in like the amount of total money or like a yearly amount that they're making. And we saw that already with Jimmy Garoppolo. We saw like the huge amount of guaranteed for Kirk Cousins. And so it's sort of just a product of what came before it.
Yeah, and it's just, and the bar doesn't have to be particularly high. Like Kirk Cousins, I'm sorry, that bar is not a high bar. He's a good quarterback. He's a solid quarterback. If you built a good team around Kirk Cousins, you could win. For instance, you could swap Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins, and I can't say that the Atlanta Falcons become a fundamentally worse football team. I don't think I can actually say that when you look at the weapons that they have on that football team, both running the ball with Freeman, passing the ball. They've got Julio Jones, and now they've got Ridley, but they've had Sanu and a bunch of other guys, Gabriel as well. And I don't know, one of the best offensive lines in the league, by the way. I don't know that if you swap Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan, you get a fundamentally better team. Or Alex Smith, I think, is in that same bunch of guys. That's just really good. But you look at the last bunch of guys to get paid high contracts. You have Kirk Cousins, who really has been to the playoffs once, hasn't really won anything. You have Matt Stafford in that bunch. You have Derek Carr in that bunch. You have Jimmy Garoppolo, who has played well in the games that we have seen, but it's still such a small sample size for the amount of money that guy's been paid. And I go, teams are so desperate that they'll take a guy who's good and pay him like he's great. And I don't know if it's guys aren't being coached up well, or if the college game is simply not giving you a sophisticated enough quarterback. But the desperation is real.
Absolutely. Like, greatness isn't even really the mark of how much money you make anymore.
Not at that position.
No.
Like if I have a kid and I want him to play football, I want my kid to play quarterback. Like, absolutely. And not even for like the star power effect or the fact that the ball is always in your hands, but, and maybe it's just awfully capitalist of me, but like, just get paid. And you don't have to be great. You don't have to be great. You just have to be good. You just have to be good. And that to me is so alarming, because if you play any other position on the football field, like, I can't imagine that you are thrilled that quarterbacks are making this level of money. When you're Le'Veon Bell, you are literally one of the top running backs in all of football, if not the top running back, and you can't get your team to pay you. Meanwhile, Matt Ryan, $100 million guaranteed.
Yeah, I think if you're going back to the other point, if you're like a parent trying to get your child into football, the combination of the fact that they make so much more money and the league is so desperate to protect them that they practically play by different rules to everyone else in terms of how they can be hit. Why would you do anything else?
Yeah, why would you? I have no idea. I mean, honestly, if I really, really had a choice, like, my kid's playing baseball, like, that's like the least amount of contact for the most amount of money. That is for like in a long possible career, if you pull it off right. If you have a kid who's like a lefty pitcher, you're just set. You're really just set. But as far as having them play football goes, I mean, like, how do you not do quarterback, to the point where, like, I truly understand Lamar Jackson's mom. Lamar Jackson's mom is a woman who has refused on multiple occasions for coaches to change his position from quarterback to wide receiver, because it's something that a lot of people have wanted to do. And I can understand why. I mean, you look at a guy like Calvin Johnson, who ends his career with just broken everything. He wasn't practicing during the week before game days because the knee was messed up, the ankle was messed up, the foot was messed up. I think he at one point broke 9 of his 10 fingers. Like, yeah, you could have your kid be Calvin Johnson, or you could have your kid be Lamar Jackson and be a quarterback. And if Lamar Jackson pans out for Baltimore, I mean, the chances are the Ravens will pay him. Look at what happened with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. We all knew he wasn't good. Like, everyone knew. And we still acknowledge that the Ravens had to pay him. You know?
Like, it was basically just inevitability. Like, he had, I guess, good games in the postseason for 2 years, which was like a type of consistency that one would have assumed or hoped would have continued. But really, he only needed that 1 year as his contract year doing what he did. Forget anything else he did before that, and we still would have had to have paid him that money.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you just kind of have to pay a guy on, like, what have you done for me lately? And Matt Ryan has done a lot for the Atlanta Falcons lately, right? Like, they had a deep playoff run last year. They had a Super Bowl run the year before where they fell short in the Super Bowl. And honestly, this football team is good enough. It can go back, you know, and maybe Matt Ryan wins the Super Bowl. It makes this price tag a little bit more bearable, even though you could still make the argument that, like, you swap him with like 5 other guys and this team is still the same football team. I think it makes it a little bit bearable. I think Atlanta, you're doubling down on Matt Ryan now. This is the guy for you. And for the next 5 years at least. And he's not getting any younger. I guess this is just sort of where you are at. You're listening to Nuga Radio 92.7 FM, Sport Talk with Sam Jordan, Keon Rose, filling in for Sam Jordan, my youngest brother, Cade Rose, joining me on the show so that we can talk all of this NFL goodness. So one of the things that I thought was interesting was AJ Green, who played at the University of Georgia, believes that the rookie of the year is going to be Sony Michel. And my first thought was to say no. How is it not obviously Saquon Barkley? But when I think about it, and I think about how the Patriots are designed, and when I think about how much room there is for a truly dominant running back to rack up yardage and to have a honest to goodness MVP caliber season in New England, because they haven't had a running back as good as Sony Michel maybe ever in Tom Brady's entire career. I kind of agree with AJ Green.
Yeah, I think Sony Michel and the Patriots, they definitely have an advantage. Like, I think they have a better line there. They have a team that consistently is able to get the most out of the Leafs.
Right.
And now actually bringing in what might be in years the first, like, this is a high running back prospect that the Patriots are bringing in. So, like, you compare that to the situation in New York where, like, they've brought in some people for that line, but it's not as good. The offense around him might not be as good, despite, like, the receiver core that you want to think of. You've still got to have Eli Manning, who has been on a consistent decline throwing to them.
Right. Eli Manning, look, they have Sterling Shepard, who's going to be back from injury. Odell Beckham Jr.'s injury was horrific. I actually don't know how good he will be when he comes back. I don't think he'll be bad. I'm sure he'll be fine, but I think the question still has to linger out there. Eli Manning looks washed to me. Honest to goodness, I honestly don't believe him to be I wouldn't even put him in the good level of quarterback. He's average at best. When he's playing his best football, he's average. And so I can't even put him there. It's just going to be a tough situation for Saquon to really succeed. Plus, you've got all the scrutiny of being in New York. If he starts off slow, you know how New York fans are. And so, yeah, I think that Saquon Barkley is just in a tougher spot to gain Rookie of the Year from, despite the fact that I do consider him to be ultimately the better player. And then also, I think, like, Saquon, you're going to have to overcome, whether you're Sony Michel or you're Saquon Barkley, one of these quarterbacks, because quarterbacks tend to be able to put up the kinds of numbers that give you Rookie of the Year ability. And I don't know if it's going to be Darnold. I don't know how much or how soon Baker Mayfield's going to be injected into the mix in Cleveland, but you have to think that that's going to be a lot for anybody to overcome. But I just look at New England and go, you're playing with Tom Brady. Their bread and butter is still passing the ball. How much can you dominate if you are a caliber of back like Sony Michel? Patriots usually go out and get boring guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's always like the safe guy that no one else is like looking at or even maybe knows the name of before they've been drafted.
It's pretty crazy. So we heard a story the other day about the Browns executive that passed on Josh Rosen. And I'll never understand the Cleveland Browns. I try and defend the Cleveland Browns all the time. And I have a friend who is a Browns fan, and he is the most patient person that I know. And you have to be. You absolutely have to be. It's a good thing he's also a Cavs fan. That way, he's gotten to see a title of some sort in his life. Because when I look at the Cleveland Browns, they passed on Josh Rosen for the most bizarre reason, which is one of their scouts saw the UCLA volleyball team in the airport, talked to the UCLA volleyball coach about Josh Rosen, to which the coach said, "Oh, Josh Rosen, if you want to know about him, his girlfriend is on the team. She's right over there. Talk to her." At which point the scout said he didn't like that. Now, it's very vague, and I'm not entirely certain about what part he did not like. Did he not like the girlfriend? Did he not like the softball coach not having an opinion on Josh Rosen? I'm not entirely certain exactly what the scout was looking at there. Do you have any ideas, Kate?
I'm not sure. It feels like it can only rationally be one of those two things, to where maybe he didn't like the girlfriend, whether or not he just looked at her or had a conversation with her, or he didn't like the idea that this coach didn't have the information he wanted on a player of a different sporting team. But either way, if Josh Rosen goes and does well in like the next couple years, you could just pull out the Curb Your Enthusiasm music, because it's just so sad. It's the Browns. It feels so much them.
It is them. Never before has there been a organization marred with dysfunctionality quite like the Cleveland Browns. Like, nobody on this planet is exactly the Cleveland Browns and how it is that they choose to handle being bad at absolutely everything. And I even defended their Baker Mayfield pick the other day, because I just happen to be of the belief that if you like a quarterback enough in the draft, like you just love this guy and you think he is a game-changing talent, it doesn't make any sense not to take him if you really believe that. However, if you believe that Josh Rosen was also a game-changing talent, and this bizarre line of events is the reason why you decided not to draft Josh Rosen, I don't have a defense for that. There is actually none. And there's a great scene in the movie Moneyball where the scouts are all sitting around the table, and one of the scouts is trying to evaluate a player, and he says out loud and with a very serious face, "I don't like this guy's confidence. He's got an ugly girlfriend. Like, his girlfriend is ugly." And obviously, how can I expect this guy to come up to this plate and hit 315 if he's going to be out here with an ugly girlfriend? And that is literally the only explanation that I can think of what this scout could possibly have been talking about, which is that he thought Josh Rosen's girlfriend was ugly. That's the only thing I can think of. And even then, that doesn't make any sense that in player evaluation in 2018, you are looking at someone's girlfriend and going, "Oh, well, I don't know, man. That girl's like a 6. I feel like if Josh Rosen really had confidence, he'd have pulled like a 9. And you're just like, really? The same Josh Rosen who, when he fell to 10th in the draft, said that 9 other teams that drafted ahead of him made mistakes. The guy's got confidence in spades. I'm not entirely certain what the scout's looking at there. I have nothing. I have no news.
I couldn't say. Like, I just hope that wasn't like as big an influencer in the decision as it really seems like it might have been, because like there's enough like stats and on the field results to support them taking Baker Mayfield. But if this was really like a major piece of the puzzle, that shakes the foundation of the whole thing for me.
So here's the thing. I'm going to shift gears here a little bit over to the NBA, because I saw a video from the perspective of a fan in which James Harden knocked his phone out of his hands. And what the fan was saying to James Harden was, "You're the worst flopper in the league." And then James Harden smacked his phone. And then the security team came over and said, "Why are you over here? Your seat is over there. You need to get back to your seat." And the guy was trying to whine and complain about, "But he hit my phone." We have gotten to the point, for some bizarre reason, where we side with the fans on a lot of issues when it comes to getting inside of players' space. And it's just like, no, the players should just deal with it because they make the money for someone to just get up all in their space. And I'm telling you right now, you get up in my space, I'm going to smack you. I don't like people there. And I'm telling you this because I think what our instinct to do in a lot of these situations is to relate to other fans and to say fans are like me because I'm a fan too. And I'm saying in most situations, you're not like the fans. You're actually like the players. If someone got up in your face with a phone, I don't know if you'd let them keep on recording. I'm telling you, I don't.
Yeah, I think there's like this odd thing of like people sort of trying to defend fans who, if they really thought about it, they really probably don't agree with. And like, there's nowhere in the equation that it actually makes sense that you should be there heckling a player because they make their money to play the sport. You paid your money to watch. The sense of entitlement, I'm not sure where it came from, but it is just here. And unlike probably a lot of other, I guess, similar industries where you could sum it down to person comes to put on a show, it's just sort of accepted.
Yeah, I don't know. This past Monday, I went to go see my second favorite band, Beach House, at the Signal downtown. San Antonio, Chattanooga is becoming just music city, and I love it. And we're getting a lot of great acts down here. But you pay your money to go watch that band. If you cause a disruption in the crowd, they'll toss you out of the venue, and they should. You paid money to watch the music. And if you go to a basketball game, you paid money to watch the game. You didn't pay money for the ability to get in someone's space. And there's a barricade there. And that's the only thing that is protecting you from that player. I bet you when you see James Harden on the street, all 6'6" of him, that you don't stand there and tell him that he is the worst flopper in the league while you were all up in his space. I bet you don't. And to me, that's my personal rule is I don't say anything about a person that I wouldn't say to their face. Everything I say about people on this show, I would say to their face. I absolutely would. You wouldn't say that to James Harden's face if there was no barricade.
Also, on like a lighter note, James Harden is probably the best flopper in the NBA.
Yeah, actually, fair enough. See, now that's the other thing too. James Harden may be an egregious flopper, but he's actually quite successful as a flopper. So your analysis on that is even wrong.
Yeah, it's like just an accepted part of his game that he could do that, and he can go out there in game 2 against the Jazz and at the half have more free throws than the entire Utah Jazz.
Look, the fact of the matter is James Harden might be one of the greatest floppers of all time, and it's a part of the game. Everybody knows that James Harden is going to flop, and still somehow James Harden manages to pull this off so convincingly that he is actually able to still draw fouls. That is impressive. And so to Kate's point, James Harden, the best flopper in the NBA. You're listening to all new Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com, here on 92.7 FM. You're listening to Sports Talk with Sam Jordan. Two Millennials Talk with me and Russell Stroud. Next.
The tennis